Wasserman wrestles with deep-seated fears and traumatic memories. Haunted by a childhood trauma, Beau is consumed by paranoia, convinced of unseen threats lurking around him. As his anxiety escalates, Beau's relationships strain, and he embarks on a desperate quest to confront his inner demons. With laughs, screams, and a dash of absurdity, it's a wild ride you won't want to miss. This is Beau is Afraid.
And welcome to another episode of the Nosebleed AV Club. I'm your host, Matt, and joining me, as always, is my co-host and my brother, Austin.
What's going on?
This is another episode of the Nosebleed A24 Club, because we are talking Ari Asters, Beau is Afraid. Or, I think a more apt title for it is Beau is Fucked.
An even more apt title for it is Ari Asters fucked.
He is indeed fucked. So let's run through the cast. I mean, really, it's a one-man show, basically. Our titular character, Beau, is played by the Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, you already know anything that Joaquin Phoenix does is probably going to be a banger acting-wise. He acted his fucking balls off in this movie. For sure.
Spoiler. Let's save that.
He definitely acted his balls off. However, there is a really strong supporting cast. His mama, Mona Wasserman, is played by Patti LuPone, who I must respectfully say just has the look of just a crazy ass bitch. She fucking nailed that 100%. I'm not familiar with anything else she's in.
According to Janice, a legend. So maybe we might not be too familiar with what she's been in, but apparently what she's been in has been pretty good.
Okay,
so.
I believe it. Young Mona is played by Zoe Lister-Jones, who has been in random shows I've seen throughout my years, but again, still not really familiar with her.
Janice just texted me. She's a Broadway legend, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Apparently this cast is very stacked and we're just plebs, dude. We're just not in the know.
Well, we're not the Broadway people. Like, that's Landon.
That's
so
true.
whenever Landon is able to make it back onto the podcast for an episode, you know, we'll make sure we get some Broadway in there.
Yeah, we'll put some respect on these people's names. However, someone I am familiar with is my man, my boy, Roger, who's played by Nathan Lane, who has an affinity for animal movies because he's known from The Birdcage, The Lion King, and a little classic called Mouse Hunt. I actually bought that blind on VHS at Costco.
Old as shit, right?
Yeah.
Oh my! Actually, I just forgot about that movie until you brought it up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You just unlocked a memory.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What
the fuck?
Some banger cameos as well.
Name my guy.
You know who it is. Making a recurring appearance on the Nosebleed AV Club. Our boy Archie Madikwe.
Yes. Fucking
pleasantly surprised by his appearance. I was like, wait, is that is? I was like, what the fuck?
So this is only the second time I've ever watched this movie, and the first time was in theaters.
Yeah.
Like, obviously in the moment, I probably appreciate it. There's been some time since I watched it in theaters and then rewatching it for this podcast, and like I forgot he was in this movie. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, I was like, oh sick.
My boy.
Another banger cameo is, of course, Bill Hader and the back of his head. Amazing. Incredible.
Honestly, like, without going too much into it, for how little he's in this movie, great performance. Great performance.
I mean, he did a big part of this movie too. He was in it too, like a pretty important scene. So kudos to Bill Hader, man. There's a lot more cameos that are really good. Amy Ryan, of course, is Holly Flax from The Office. We get Richard. What's his name? Richard. I forgot his name. The guy who looks like Colin Farrell as Penguin looks like him in the Batman. I'm forgetting what his name is, but he's in this. A really strong cast overall. but this is the Joaquin Phoenix show.
Richard Kind.
Thank you. Yes, Richard Kind.
We should probably establish this is the first Ari Aster movie you've seen.
Correct.
Right?
This is my introduction to this psychopath known as Ari Aster. You know how we kind of try to intervene when there's troubled kids at school to prevent any tragedies from happening. Is there a protocol for movie directors and writers? Because I believe we need to get this guy in a program ASAP.
Dude, I should preface this, right? Like, Ari Aster is like one of my favorite current directors right now, right?
Okay.
I'm a big fan of his previous 2 movies before this movie. I have to say, like, you starting with this movie is either a really good thing or a really fucking bad thing. This is just such a weird movie to start on for him. That's me speaking as a fan, you know, and like someone who really fucking loves this director and what he does.
I did read that this movie kind of divided his fans a bit.
I'm like one of those fans, right? Like, I'm not going to commit fully to being divided, but like this movie definitely separates itself from the other 2 movies. And I'm a huge fan of the other 2 movies. So take that for what you will.
I kind of feel like it's similar to Jordan Peele, how in his trilogy of movies, right? The first 2 are kind of, in a way, the same veins as each other. And then that third one is just kind of a little more out there-ish.
Honestly, that's not a bad comparison. Like, I do think that is a pretty good comparison. Like, I definitely think both of these directors with their third movie, they really decided to like go out there. And the thing I respect about both of these directors and why they're both 2 of my favorite directors currently is that they are constantly subverting your expectations and doing something different. Just when you think that you have a feel for where these directors are going to go or what they're going to do, you watch the movie and you're like, oh, that's not at all what I was expecting, you know?
Yeah.
You are right, like how that is kind of the general consensus regarding both of these directors. In terms of Nope, which is the movie you're, you know, alluding to.
Yeah.
Like, I still really like that movie.
So do I.
You know, and I don't hold it in the same regard that I do Jordan Peele's other 2 movies, but I still really like that movie. Without getting too much into my opinion on things, like this movie, I don't necessarily think I could say the same thing, you know?
Let's go into our general thoughts. I'm gonna try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. So when you suggested this movie to me, I was definitely intrigued. I don't think I saw a trailer, but I knew Joaquin Phoenix was in it, and it's a weird movie because it's A24, so I'm like, all right. I immediately went to go see where it was streaming. It is not streaming anywhere where you don't have to pay an additional fee. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to pay to rent it. So I acquired the movie by other means.
Oh, okay. Nice. For sure.
And when I put the movie on,
you asked a friend.
I asked a friend, hey,
they gave you their DVD.
Do you have a copy? And they're like, yeah, dude, I have it on VHS. I'll lend it to you. I'm like, sick, thank you. What you failed to tell me was that it was three VHSs because this movie is 3 hours fucking long.
Yeah. You know, here's the thing, right? Like, I really wanted to do this movie because, one, I really wanted to rewatch it, like have a reason to rewatch it, which I made very clear to you when we've talked about what movies we want to do. I would always start it out with, hey, I've been really wanting to rewatch Beau is Afraid. I'm gonna probably rewatch it regardless of whether or not we do an episode of it. But if I'm gonna rewatch it, maybe we should do an episode on it. I knew the movie was long. I remember that the movie was fucking long. I knew if I told you that, my chances of getting us to talk about it on the podcast would shrink tremendously. So, you know, listen, I didn't lie to you. You just didn't ask.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. When I put it on and I saw the runtime was 2 hours and 59 minutes, I damn near was going to text you to pivot. I was like, you know what, dude? Wonka just came out on streaming. Should we do that?
Look, I haven't seen Wonka. No, I haven't seen Dune 2.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it.
I haven't seen it, but listen, I guarantee you this is going to give us way better conversation and content than Wonka ever will. I'm sorry.
Okay, that being said, this movie pissed me the fuck off.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that.
Good start. Okay. Yeah. So, as I said before, really big fan of Ari Aster. I'm a huge fan of Hereditary and Midsommar. I knew going into this movie to not expect Hereditary, to not expect Midsommar. Like, just be open to it and just let whatever is presented to you on screen, just let it happen, you know, and enjoy it for what it is, right? I did that. And I still came out of the theater just like, what the fuck, dude? This guy has a fucking talent for subverting your expectations and just throwing you for a fucking loop, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's times where it works and I'm pleasantly surprised by something. I just was like, wow, this is like a whole new direction for this director.
Mm-hmm.
This movie, when I first watched it, I wasn't sure. I remember having a good time, and that's about it. But now, after watching it a second time, I'm so lost. Like, I just don't know how I feel about this movie, because on the one hand, there are parts about it that I really fucking like and I really enjoy. But then there's other parts about it that I'm just like, why? Like, why? Like, why am I going through this? There are parts of this movie where I would rather be doing anything else with my life. There's parts of this movie that either drag or just make me extremely uncomfortable, but not in a way that like is interesting or like fulfilling to me. It's just uncomfortable because I'm just not really enjoying it. I'm not like some fucking like movie savant. Like, I'm not a critic, or I'm not somebody that over analyzes movies. You know, I just watch movies. I enjoy them. You know, I do like to get into some of the more deeper discourse when it comes to movies, but I'm not going to be the type of person that gives you some sort of video essay. That being said, as somebody that just enjoys weird movies and likes to watch movies that make me think, this movie just like really just fucking confuses me. It really just annoys me in some parts, and it really just baffles me what the choices were, why the choices were made. And like, this movie, out of the 3 movies that Ari's done, has the bigger budget. I'm not saying a budget should be indicative of the quality of the movie, but like, the expectations for a higher budget movie should obviously be higher because it should be expected to make more. This man is the bravest man in Hollywood. This man got a way bigger budget. He has way more to lose. And he just decided to make the most fucking balls to the walls, batshit crazy movie he could have imagined that nobody in their right mind could fucking explain or sell if they wanted to. Honestly, still to this day, I don't know what to make of it, but I don't think it's something that I'm going to really itch to watch anytime soon for the next fucking 5 to 10 years.
When I started the movie, I was already like, fuck, this is going to be a long ass movie. What the hell is he making me watch? But I really loved the first hour. The first hour, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'm in. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. This world is fucking crazy, but I'm fucking into it. And it really reminded me of the game Cyberpunk, just with the way because okay, so something I really liked about the first half is that it felt a lot like a video game. A lot of the way it was shot.
I didn't even know you played Cyberpunk.
Yeah, dude. I played Cyberpunk.
I did.
We've shit talked Cyberpunk, dude.
Well, yeah. I mean, everyone.
I played it though. Like, I was playing
at the time when it came out. Oh, sure, for sure.
But it reminded me a lot of Cyberpunk, just because the way the world kind of is. And then there's a scene where he gets out of therapy and he's just kind of walking through, and it's like a marketplace where all this chaos is happening. It actually reminded me of a specific part of Cyberpunk where you're kind of in an area and it's just like that, where there's like booths and they're like selling shit. That seems really cool because it obviously it foreshadows a lot of the shit that goes on later in the movie. Everything was hitting for me that first half. The jokes were fucking hilarious.
Yes.
Right? Like, I loved the jokes. Yes. It was shot beautifully. There were some things that they've done cinematography wise that I've never seen done before, or at least not done in the way that they did it. For example, there was a scene where Beau's keys get stolen and his luggage gets stolen. And and he talks to the fucking like garbage man or whatever.
You're fucked.
You're fucked. And then it like switches to his point of wiew. I just thought that was super cool, where it was like his first person point of view just walking through. And then there's this one point where he fucking like exits the building and it does that video game scroll of like your surroundings. Like, I just thought that was super cool. I was like, man, this is, I'm hooked. Like, this is cool. Again, the jokes were super funny. Him fucking like running out of the fucking apartment complex and like smacking that dude to the door. Or even before that, when you're seeing the fucking city in disarray, and then you see him fucking gunning it to get to his building before the guy gets him. That shit was so funny.
I'm glad you brought it up. Like, yes, I agree 1000%. The beginning of this movie is super fucking strong, hilarious. It's basically just a hyper exaggeration of just all the shit that's wrong with the world today whenever you just go outside. 100% with you. Like, I fucking love it. And just a specific shout out to the reference of like every fucking time I've ever been to like any major city I've ever visited, there is always that one guy just on the street corner multiple times, like, you know, multiple guys on different blocks, but like there's always that person on a block that's just like dancing to music. And like there's a character in this movie that is that guy, and it's just like so fucking hilarious, dude. So funny. Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it immediately hooked me in. It was so good. I was laughing at everything. I was excited for what was to come. I was like, okay, 3 hours. First hour, solid as fuck. Love it. After the beautiful play scene, everything after that, I was just wanting the movie to end.
I'm honestly surprised that that's where you're cutting it. I would honestly even say like before the play scene. I agree with you that the play scene is beautifully shot, but overall, the entire play scene, that's where I found myself being the most like bored. Like, why? Yeah. What am I doing here? I just don't think it needs to be as long as it is.
That's the one thing I will criticize is, you know, it went on for so long. The only saving grace was that it was beautiful. It was so beautiful.
And like the monologue that happens throughout that play scene is great. You know, there's some really fun, good stuff. It just goes on way too long, and like I'm just never really sure what I'm supposed to get out of it. And listen, maybe you're not supposed to get anything out of it, right? Like I watched that scene twice now at this point, and both times I'm just like bored out of my mind. I would honestly say for me, the part where the movie just kind of takes a dip is like as soon as he leaves Nathan Lane's house. That's where the movie just really takes a lull for me. It just drags so much.
And that is why this movie pissed me off. Everything that happened after, I don't know, maybe like an hour and 45 minutes into the movie, I was just like, please end. Like, please end. Like, this is doing nothing for me. Like, there was times where I was checking to see how much I had left. I was like, fuck. I'm tired, dude. Like, I'm tired of just watching him suffer for no reason. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems like all these bad things were happening. I mean, obviously his mom was setting it up, like we find out later. But it's just like, why? It's just like, why is this happening? Like, this is so fucking annoying.
There's so many parts of this movie where it just takes its fucking time, and I wish it would just get to the point. Between each sequence, there's moments where we lose him. Between each set piece, you know, he kind of loses consciousness, right? Like when he leaves Nathan Lane's house, we waste about 10 to 15 minutes, you know, recuperating from there. After the play scene, you know, he's running away again, and then he gets electrocuted, loses consciousness. Again, we spend another 10 to 15 minutes getting there. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's 30 minutes already of the movie that you could have cut down, you know, if you just like got to the point. There's like a lot of moments in this movie where I just feel like the pacing doesn't need to be as excruciating or grueling as it is. Like, if it was making a point, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know, I would probably appreciate it more. But whatever it was trying to do, it just didn't hit for me.
I'm not gonna lie, I was confused as fuck after I watched this movie. I'm like, okay, maybe there's something about like childhood trauma or what have you. It was like, yes, childhood trauma, but the mom was just a fucking bitch for no fucking reason. Like, she just straight up was just a bitch since day one. That's something I was trying to figure out throughout the movie, right? Is they clearly established there's something weird between him and his mom.
Yeah.
And you don't really know what it is. And then like the scene where they're on the cruise ship happens. My mind was going like, was he fucking sexually abused by his mom, and that's why he's so weird about sex and stuff like that? Turns out that's not the case at all. Right? So I'm like, so it's like, why was there such weird sexual tension between them? Was it just me that was feeling that? Like, so when they're in the bed and he's clearly like defensive, and she's like, oh, I'm so proud of the man you are. Blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, oh shit. Like, did she like fuck this guy? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it was weird, but turns out, again, subverting expectations. That's not at all the case. She's just a bitch for no reason. She's just a psychopath.
A lot of this movie, what it's trying to do, you know, from what I can gather, is just kind of display the dynamic of parent and child, like unreliable narrator type shit, you know, where it's like everyone is going to speak to their truth. Towards the end of this movie, we get it in a very literal display of like a court case, you know, happening, a trial happening. But like on one hand, you have Beau's perspective on things and how his mom fucked him up. But then on the other hand, we have the mom's perspective on things and how Beau was just an ungrateful child that always rejected her. You know, and we're never really sure who actually is telling the truth. Maybe that's speaking to some message of like, there never really is a right or wrong with this type of thing. Like the parent and the child are always going to have their own unique perspective on things and they're going to butt heads. And like each side could be justified in why they feel what they feel when they feel it. I feel like you could have conveyed that message in a way that just didn't drag, you know? I think that's the biggest part of this movie that I have to criticize, is that it just doesn't get to the point quick enough. And the point that it does get to is, you know, ambiguous by design, but, you know, it's not satisfying. I need to feel like we went on this journey with a purpose, you know, because Ari Aster, I think in interviews, has referred to this movie as like a modern day interpretation of like the Odyssey. And I read this from Wikipedia, so I don't know if he actually said this or not, but like, it's like Jewish Lord of the Rings, but instead of going to Mordor, he's just going to his mom's house. Like, okay, sure, those are all really funny, interesting premises, but like both of those things that you're referencing, they have a point, and the point is adequately made.
So I like that you brought up the whole unreliable narrative thing. It's not necessarily something I agree with. Like, I don't think Beau is an unreliable narrator. To me, like what we saw actually happened. Certain things are an illusion, but overall, the events are actually what happened in this world. Yeah. And at the end, his mom is twisting it, obviously, during her court case to fit her narrative. The interesting thing is, though, I'm sure you noticed this, but at the beginning of the movie, when they're showing like the production credits or whatever, they also show a Mona Wasserman logo, right? Like this is her production. It's already hinting that she's in control of everything, right? So it's interesting that you brought up the whole like it's a different perspective between child and parent, because I do like that thought. I do like where you were going with that.
I do think that like the company that she runs is obviously a very big, powerful company. Yeah. It has its hands in a lot of different industries where, you know, they put out all the food products that Beau is eating, you know, maybe knowingly or unknowingly.
Even the floss he uses.
A lot of the floss he uses, the advertisements you see in the background, the building he lives in, the people he comes across in this whole journey are employed by her. She has her hands on all these things. And I think that's just kind of painting the picture of like, you know, when you're a child, your parents are basically in direct control of what you do, how you live your life. They control pretty much every aspect of your life. And I think that's just kind of what it's trying to say. And then in that story, you know, you either have kids that rebel against that, you have kids that fall in line. In Beau's case, right, it's like half and half, right, where he falls in line seemingly, but he also does rebel. You know, we saw footage of him hiding from his mom at the mall. Beau on the boat, right, he goes with that girl and he kisses her. She kind of pressured him, right? But then, like, we also know that Beau, like, knows that his mom wouldn't approve of that, but he still does it, right? Like, he plays that game. I do think there is some onus on Beau. Like, whether or not it's justified, yeah, you can make that argument. Again, parent-child relationship, like, both can be right, both can be petty, all that shit.
So I want to get your take on the scene where Beau's taking a bath and he sees the guy on his ceiling and everything that happens after that, because I thought it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, okay.
But at the same time, I was like, what the fuck? Why was he up there? And then I read something that makes a lot of sense. Maybe you've run into the same conclusion or have read the same thing, but I just want to get your overall thoughts on that scene. Because first of all, real quick, can you imagine you're the actor who plays that dude, right? And then you show up to set that day. Basically, your interaction with Joaquin Phoenix is you're going to tussle around with him in a bath where he's butt-ass naked and you just gotta fucking take it. Like, just the thought of that seems so fucking hilarious to me, like, that this is, like, this guy's big break, and it's Joaquin Phoenix just butt-ass naked rolling around with him. I just think that's fucking hilarious.
So I should say, right, when I watched this movie in theater, this is hands down the hardest I've laughed in the entire movie. This scene in particular, I was fucking dying watching this scene because it was just so absurd, right? Like everything up until this point was already absurd, right? But it was like believably absurd, right? Then we get to this scene where it's just like the randomest fucking thing ever. I was not expecting it at all, but when I saw it, when it happens, I'm just like, oh my God. I was fucking dying, dude.
So was I.
Was just like, this is the fucking best thing ever.
The fucking sweat dripping on his face, and then him just going, please, please,
please. It's just so fucking insane. Like the chaotic energy is at an all-time high. And then like to answer your second part of the question, right? What do I make of that scene? Like why was he up there? I think he was part of the group that was in the apartment going fucking crazy, right? And then at a certain point, the brown recluse like attacks, kills one of the guys, right? Kills the guy that's all tattooed up, right?
Yeah.
Bites him, kills him. I think that's what probably causes everyone to leave. He gets trapped in the apartment, and then, you know, that was his way of escaping. The brown recluse was to climb. Yeah, like he was just trying to escape the brown recluse, and then the brown recluse found its way up to him. He's freaking out. He's sweating balls, and then he falls. You know, they have a whole tussle, right?
So
okay, go ahead,
I read an interesting take, and I'm kind of inclined to believe it. There's a take that I read where not everyone broke into Joaquin Phoenix's, not everyone went to Beau's apartment. It was really only Tattoo Face. And Tattoo Face got bit by the brown recluse, ended up dying for sure. Now we got to remember that Beau is currently on these weird meds, right? That his therapist, his fake therapist, gave him.
Yeah.
Right? So there was a theory that the guy on the ceiling was just actually the brown recluse. His paranoia, anxiety-ridden mind is just painting like the worst thing that could happen in his bed. And that's why he's hallucinating a guy on a ceiling when really it's just a brown recluse, which makes sense. Also because brown recluses in general aren't typically aggressive towards humans. They kind of live up to their name where they kind of try to avoid.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that he sees this venomous spider and he's automatically assuming, fuck, I'm going to die, or, you know, it could kill humans. Which I thought was an interesting take that I didn't consider because, like you, I thought he was just up there the whole time for whatever reason. I don't know why he's up there, and you know, even how he got up there. Because if I remember, like the architecture of the building, it's not like he can like scurry. You know, you know what I mean. He can't scurry up and then wedge himself. Right, there's not enough walls.
Absurd. There's like where? How did he like? It's like how did he? So okay.
So like I was like, okay, that's a good take. Like I like that take. It's interesting to me.
It definitely is interesting. I don't like it, but let me explain why. Right, like it's interesting. It's intriguing. Totally get people trying to dissect it. I think this is one of those parts of the movies where we just need to take it for what it is, because that's a lot of like jumping that you're doing, a lot of jumping to conclusions. And like, listen, this is kind of the movie where you could maybe do that, right? I think that's the fun part of this movie, is that like it's up to your interpretation of like, was this an hallucination? Was this not? Plenty of reason to think that he would be hallucinating, you know, because of the drug aspect to it, the anxiety aspect to it. You know, two of those things are both things that could cause people to manifest or over imagine things, right? But for me, it's like, okay, you said it yourself, right? Like you said yourself when we were talking about the whole unreliable narrative thing, is that you think that everything happened as it is, right? Like if you submit yourself to this idea that he was hallucinating that whole thing and that this guy was really just a manifestation of the brown recluse falling onto him, then like you kind of have to do that for the entire movie. Then now you submit yourself to, well, not everything is actually really as it happens, and it kind of proves that point again, right, of the unreliable narrative.
I think like, the beats are there. For example, when they break into the apartment, I definitely do think someone broke into the apartment. To the extent where it was the whole fucking town, I don't know, right? But he did just take drugs, right? He took those new pills for that. And then some shit goes down. I forget, at Nathan Lane's house. He's forced to take that hit by Tony and her friend. So then everything after that, he's extremely like fucking under the influence as well. And then I think that's kind of where it ends though, right? Because after that, there's no really instances of him being under the influence, right? Like everything else is just kind of what happens, right?
To me, like he's not really on drugs throughout. It's really only when he
those
smokes
two
weed.
parts.
To me, the whole thing with the play scene and him becoming a part of it is just really just displaying like him resonating with the story.
That's totally what I
told.
think. Yeah.
You know,
I'm on board with that. I just think for those two things specifically, you can make the argument that, some shit did happen to him. Whether or not they happened in that extreme of a matter, you can kind of argue, I think. But I do think, like, yes, someone broke into his apartment. Someone definitely fucked up his shit. Yeah. That guy definitely died from the brown recluse.
Because we don't know this drug, we don't know the extent to it. You know, the extent.
You know what I should have done? I should have Googled that drug he actually prescribed if it was real.
I was actually wondering that too. Yeah. I should have Googled that too. Yeah. Because I've seen the argument that the entire movie from that point, right?
No, I don't agree with that. But here's another thing, though, where we could kind of see where Beau just jumps to the worst conclusions is when he's fucking Googling the side effect of him not taking it with water, and he just sees a memorial post for someone, and he freaks the fuck out. Actually, this whole thing boils down to, you know what, guys? Just stay hydrated. Just drink water.
So the way this movie, how people that have loved this movie have described to me, it's just anxiety, the movie. If you're someone that suffers from extreme anxiety, right? Like me and you, yes, we both suffer from anxiety in certain aspects, but like for the most part, we're able to live normal lives. It doesn't affect us to that degree, right? Yeah. I know people that do suffer from really crippling anxiety. You know, one of them that has seen this movie and they fucking love it. And because for them, it really is like a representation of the things they deal with in real life. You know, this movie is the embodiment of anxiety and the things that anxiety puts in your brain and does to you. That's for me, the biggest explanation for all the weird shit that happens in this movie is that, you know, when you're an anxious person, your brain is automatically thinking of whatever the worst thing that could possibly happening, even if it is just unfathomably, just illogically, just impossible.
To add to your point, another take I saw that is kind of like, okay, if you're going off that logic, it kind of makes the movie more forgivable, is this movie just follows dream/nightmare logic, where things just happen and there's no really an explanation for them. They're just really out there, just randomly happening, and you just go along with it, right? Because in your dreams and your nightmares, you don't control anything. You're just going with what's happening, right? Like you're just reacting to what's going on in your world.
Did they indicate like why it does the dream logic, right? Like, so like that makes sense. Like I agree, like that's just how dreams are and shit just happens like that, right? But like, if you know, if your theme is dreams, right? Like Ari Asters is a fucking phenomenal filmmaker.
Because like, they do like mention dreams, right? That recurring dream of him in the bathtub, which is another thing I want to get into that we'll follow up with.
I just think that you're giving too much power to the dream part of it. If your explanation for everything that happens in this movie is like, oh, it's just dream logic, like shit's just gonna happen. Like I just think you're giving a way too much power to dreams, and maybe you're not directly saying it, but you're kind of alluding to it just all being a dream because it's all dream logic. Like
I forgot what the deeper context of what their statement was. I think they were just kind of like describing the flow of the movie more than anything.
Which I agree. Like, yes, like I can equate that to the flow of the movie for sure, 100%. I just don't think that that's what it is.
So the sex scene.
Always be my baby.
Yo, first of all, we criticize licensed music a lot on this podcast. However, this might be one of my favorite uses of licensed music.
So one of the things
there's
I talked
layers
about,
to that shit.
Exactly, there's the layers to that shit. The always be my baby part, like it's just like, no, brilliant.
The part I want to get into is the cause of death of Elaine. I've seen this debated. I want your take.
I'm not married to this, right? Like, I should just make that clear. I, to this day, am not sure why she died, but here's just my take, right? She lied to him. It's not that him coming will kill him. It's not that your dad died when he came. It's that he's a giant penis monster. Here's my interpretation, right? He thought this whole time he was going to die if he ejaculated, like he's been told from his mom. Didn't happen. But the truth is that he is descendant of a giant penis monster. In my mind, he came, and she makes a point, right? Elaine makes a point to tell you that he busted through the condom. I think how she dies is that it has something to do with both him coming in her and then her then climaxing. And like, it has something to do with his sperm because he is of this descendant of this penis monster that like it is just too strong or too whatever for like a normal human person to take, essentially. I think, one, it proves the point that his mom is just built different, right? Mona is just another type of animal, right? Who could take that fucking cum like a fucking boss.
Pussy to bomb.
Because she's a girl boss. Two, I think it also maybe can entail that I don't remember if Mona ever says that she climaxed too. She only indicates that the dad dies when he climaxed, which obviously was a lie, but like there could be some truth to it, right? It's a half truth, unreliable narrative type shit, right? What saves her and allows her to have Beau is that she ends up never climaxing, you know, and like who knows, right? Who fucking knows? I don't know, because like maybe that's what saved her life.
Okay,
you know, I don't fucking know, but that's just kind of where my brain went.
Okay,
you know,
so I want to discuss two parts of this specific scene. So first of all, this scene was fucking hilarious. I don't think I've ever laughed so hard during a sex scene.
Yes.
Just the pure panic in his eyes. It was amazing. Great acting.
Let me just tell you right now. Let me just tell you right now. I'm not going to tell you which one it is.
Yeah.
But there is another Ari Aster movie sex scene that I know for a fact you are going to fucking lose your shit over. It's fucking hilarious.
So, something that I thought was interesting that I've seen been discussed. So, she apparently makes up the lie about him, the dad dying when he comes. Yeah. But she also makes it a point to say something about like heart palpitations, right? And how he passed that down to him, or she's assuming that he did. And that's another reason why, like, hey, don't fucking fuck. Don't fuck, don't come. The bath scene where you see the mom, Mona, trying to force young Beau to like get in the bath or whatever. That recurs constantly throughout the movie. Now, I don't know if you noticed that certain things about it change throughout every time it's seen. So one of the times is like her outfit changes. Like she's wearing like a white dress and like a black skirt at first when you first see that scene. And then I think it morphs into like a green dress when you see it another time. There's another time
where it's Elaine at the bathtub.
Where it's Elaine at the bathtub. And it's like, what the fuck is that? That's weird. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So I've seen a theory discussed that Elaine is a sibling of Beau. And it wasn't Beau who ended up getting the heart palpitations. It's her. Because she doesn't die. She does not die when Beau climaxes. But when she climaxes, she dies. Okay. So I'm like, that's very interesting. Because when I saw that bath scene, I was like, why is Elaine there with him in the bathtub? That's very strange. You know what I mean? So I was like, huh. Like, I think that's more likely. To me, I think that is a kind of more, I mean, it's out there for sure. Yeah, because you're assuming a lot, but I kind of subscribe to that one a little bit more.
Sure. I think that theory is very satisfying, right? I think that theory does a lot to like bring it full circle and make you have that like that moment of like, I don't know if it's catharsis or just like, oh, that's great. That feels awesome. I think I love that. That's a great explanation. Here's a few problems I have with it, right? It's like, okay, well, why is Elaine with this other woman, right?
Well,
and like, but like,
I'll let you finish.
Like Elaine's being raised by this other woman, right? She very clearly is disgusted and distraught with Elaine being part of Beau's life, but then like she was a part of Beau's life already. And from the flashback, right, she is the same age as she was on the boat, and she's wearing the same bathing suit. So like that doesn't really add up. There's things about it that just don't add up for me. To me, that scene with Elaine being there, I think is tied to Freudism, where like we basically, in the partners that we choose in life, you know, when we're young, our parents are basically our idea of an ideal partner. you know, because that's all we know, you know. And I think that's what that scene to me is embodying, in that, like, that was his mom that was there pouring the water on him, but he's projecting Elaine onto it because, and that goes in line with like the sexual tension that you feel between him and his mom on the boat. That goes in line with how Elaine is, where Elaine is a woman that is very direct, that's very commanding of him, that basically bosses him around in the same way that his mom does.
So
to me, that's what that is.
Okay. So let me back it up, because I had some thoughts after I read that theory. To your point, where you're saying she would have been already in his life or whatever. We know that Beau misconstrued things in his mind, right? Because he thought he had a brother for the longest time that she locked away, right? That was kind of in his mindset, that his brave self was a brother that she locked away. Hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
So we already know that his mind is kind of like fucked up as far as memories go, right? However, I don't know if you remember when he's walking through after his mom died and the funeral's over and he's seeing the ads, you see that Elaine and her mom were in an ad. So they work for Mona.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So you're saying like, oh, why is she with this lady? Could have been very well an employee that she hired. I mean, she convinced someone to fucking decapitate themselves for money for their family. So that could go in line with that. Right? Okay. And there's a part of the memorial speech where, oh, the sole surviving son. Weird way to phrase that. Weird way to phrase that you are survived by your child. The sole surviving son kind of implies there's maybe other siblings. That's just some things I thought of to kind of in defense of that theory that kind of backs it up. Like, that's interesting.
I would definitely say the strongest part of that theory is the fact that the mom and Elaine appear in ad. Okay, sure. That's pretty strong.
Because we know that Mona is no stranger to using her kid Beau in ads, right? Like, and so you could kind of argue that she was also like a test subject for him.
So here's the thing, right? Like, I'm not saying that this completely disproves what you're saying. It's just, I think you kind of got some things mixed up here, right? So Beau doesn't know that that's his brother. He thinks it's him. He's seeing himself. It's his mom that tells him, like, no, that's your brother, you idiot. Takes him up to the attic and he sees his brother there along with, you know, the big reveal of his dad. But then, like, you know, to me, that takes into what Richard Kind said, or whoever was giving the eulogy about the sole surviving son, is that he knows about the older brother or the twin brother. He knows, but like, whether it's a slip of the tongue or the mom put out the story that he died somehow, whatever, but like, that to me is where that line comes in. You know, to me, the biggest thing that disproves this theory is the fact that, you know, we see Elaine on the boat. It's very clear that he met Elaine on the boat. And then when Elaine is at the bathtub, to me, it's very clear that that's not real and that's a hallucination, because again, she appears to be the same age in that bathtub scene as she was on the boat. She's wearing the same bathing suit. And he's clearly younger, because you see his twin brother. They're not the same age.
To argue to that point, you're saying that, yes, his mom is the one who's saying that he has a brother. True. But we're also, up until that point, during that time, are led to believe that this is still Beau remembering something, right? Not necessarily Moira twisting that memory. It's how Beau is remembering it. To argue the fact that, oh, why is Elaine the same age that she was on the boat? Well, they make it a point to show the picture of her at the very beginning. I think that's just how Beau remembers her in general, is just that image of Elaine. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, in his mind.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
I thought it was an interesting theory, and I thought
it's definitely interesting.
It adds another layer to the movie. Whether or not it's true, I don't know, but I think it's a fun thought, and it kind of is a more satisfying reason as to why she dies during sex, which leads me to the second part of that discussion about this scene. So when she dies, she gets pretty fucking stiff, right? Like fucking rigor mortis, right? Like just immediately.
What do you think was stiffer, her or Beau's dick? You're hard.
You're hard as fuck, dog. Fuck. So when she dies, she's pretty fucking stiff, and she's almost doll-like. There is theories that he didn't fuck her at all, that he was really just fucking a sex doll. And I don't necessarily subscribe to that theory. However, I did find it suspect when I was watching the movie how fucking stiff she was, and how those two people were just able to like lift her up like nothing, and then how she stayed perfectly in that position. What are your thoughts on that theory?
No, I don't buy that. But I don't know. Like, okay, so rigor mortis obviously takes a little bit longer to set in. You know, I think it was like just literally like the effect of his cum, you know, and like her dying.
It's going back to the monster cum.
Yeah, like I just fucking funny enough, that to me makes more sense. You know, like within the world and the way that this movie builds context.
Yeah.
Like that to me just makes more sense. The whole doll thing, there's just like, dude, we literally see her walking around, talking, emoting. Mm-hmm. It's a lot, you know, like it's way too much. And then like, why? Like, why do all that? You know, like why create a doll like that sophisticated? I don't know. It's just
it was out there. I do agree that it's weird that she's very stiff, but I don't believe she was a doll. Sorry, let me go back to before the sex even happens, before Death by Snoo Snoo happens.
Dude, we actually got to see live action portrayal of Death by Snoo Snoo.
Sure did.
Crazy.
Another thing that someone else put out there about this scene was that, okay, we get the whole backstory of how the maid offered to kill herself for the money. We get Elaine coming back to the funeral super fucking late, by the way. Who has a funeral at 8 p.m.? That's a suspect line.
Yeah, to me, that was like the most unbelievable part of the movie. It's like, oh, sorry, I thought it was 8 p.m. Like, what funeral happens at 8 p.m., bro?
So,
I haven't even been to that many funerals, but I know that they always take place like either in the morning or like
no one's getting buried at night.
No one's getting buried at night. That doesn't happen.
Okay.
What the fuck?
So we have her coming back randomly, right? Totally not believable that she's there because she thought the funeral was at 8 p.m. She makes a point to say she owes me money anyways. Now, before they engage in sexy time, she goes like, Beau, why don't you use the bathroom and I'll be ready when you come out.
Okay, sure.
Weird. Strange. Whatever. He comes out. He's not undressed. She goes, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Goes back in, gets undressed, comes back in, they do the deed, right? Someone pointed out, or someone has a thought that like maybe she as well was expecting a payday and she volunteered to die. So she must have taken some fucking pill off screen or poison to then die after they have sex so that Mona can come in and then do her whole spiel about how he's a shit son.
My thoughts on that one is like that's a lot more believable, right? Than the other one.
The step sibling or whatever, the sibling thing. Yeah,
that could be believable. Here's my only problem with it. And it's not a matter of believing it versus not believing it. I'm just not a fan. Either it's me not being a fan of people coming to this conclusion or me not being a fan of the director if this is what he was thinking, right? It's just not good filmmaking to create scenarios that happen entirely off screen.
Yeah.
You can't expect people to consume things beyond the movie. You need to be able to create and tell stories self-contained within the movie, unless it's built into the movie itself that it has a life of its own outside of the movie, then sure, maybe. But that's a very rare scenario. So like one of the few movies that was able to pull that off, in my opinion, is like Cloverfield, right? If that's something that the people have come up with, to me, that's just not good, you know, consumption of like what the movie's presenting to you. You know, you're kind of just conveniently creating narratives to fit things that make sense to you, you know, as opposed to just taking what the movie's giving you and working with that. To me, that theory is just fabricating like 90% of what the story is and only taking 10% of what the actual movie gives you. I want to take some time to hone in on like what we really like about the movie. Like you said, like I think the beginning is just phenomenal.
Yes.
You know, like it's just so entertaining. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
You know, like way funnier than I thought it would be, you know?
Same. I'm gonna be honest, like I had really low expectations, especially when I saw like the length of the movie was like 3 hours. There's no way this is all good. And that first part really like hooks you in. At least it did to me, where it's just like, yeah, I love everything that's happening. I love the chaotic energy. I don't know where this is going, but I'm intrigued.
Again, like if you've ever been someone that's like set foot in like a sketchy city or just like been around like a sketchy neighborhood, like it's exaggerated, like I've said before, but it's just so like, yeah, this is kind of what it feels like in your mind. feelings of like anxiety that he's dealing with throughout this whole part of the movie is so great. Like the neighbor that's like tweaking, thinking he's hearing things that he's not.
Dude, when he slipped that paper and it slid all the way to his bed, dude, that was so funny to me. Great. I was like, that's amazing.
Birthday boy stabber.
Okay, so I know you don't like gore. I like to think I'm okay with it. Okay. But when he was stabbing the shit out of his hand, I was like, oh, I was like, fuck. How did you do with that part?
So that actually didn't bother me as much. Oh my God,
dude, that was so brutal.
Like, there are certain parts of gore where it kills me. It's just like, I can't do it. I don't like anything gratuitous, right?
Yeah.
That's the part of gore that I don't like. If it's gore that makes sense and it's like quick, we don't linger on it too much, then I'm usually okay. This to me that fits that criteria.
Dude, like that was gnarly, bro.
It's like cringe, right?
Yeah,
like it definitely
cringe.
did make me. It definitely made me cringe, but it's not something where like I can't ever watch this again. You have to keep in mind that this is my favorite part of the movie. Like this whole part,
it is the best
beginning part, and I was just laughing more than anything.
Same.
That whole part leading up to it, him getting landed on in the bathtub, him running out of the apartment butt ass naked, going to the police officer, is like put the weapon. Don't make me do this. Don't make me do this. Please don't make me shoot you. Like that whole sequence, him getting hit by the car and just his body flailing out there is just like all of it, dude. All of it was just so fucking hilarious to me. That whole sequence, this is before this obviously, but that whole sequence of him getting the water and trying to pay for it, meanwhile watching the people walk into his apartment.
And him just going, no.
Oh no. Oh no.
Here's
fucking
something
hilarious.
Here's something I really liked that I thought was cool. There's a couple things actually. Once he gets to Roger's house and he's in the bedroom of Tony, and you're looking at the posters, K-pop baby, like
K-pop, yeah.
We made it, bro. K-pop is it.
K-pop boy bands, like
hell yeah. Love seeing that. And then after that, when we get into the son's room, he has a Polyphia poster.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
I do have a question about something. I just remembered this. Tony would go up to the vet guy. I forget his name. And bang on his door and like say something to him to get him mad at Beau. They don't really elaborate on what was said.
Yeah.
You can kind of make your assumptions, but I want to know what you thought of that. Because when fucking Holly Flax sicks that dude on him, it's because like the daughter dies, obviously, and then she's like, go get him. And then that's when he fucking like is like, yeah, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker. But prior to that, there was always just like a weird tension, but we never really got why.
Honestly, let's just expand this to just talking about our interpretation as a whole of just that
Tony
that whole family, that whole part, right? Okay, so we know for a fact that they work for Mona and that they're purposefully stalling.
Well, at least the dad does. I don't know if we saw the mom in the employee picture.
But the mom is at least aware, right? Because she's the one that
there is something interesting about the mom.
She's the one that gives Beau like warnings, right?
Yeah.
It seems like she's trying to help him. Tony, to me, is just an unfortunate victim that's caught in between all this, right? Like, I do think that the brother dying is real.
Yes, absolutely.
I do think the feelings of being replaced are real. Like, all of that is real. What she doesn't appreciate is the fact that Beau, by necessity, has to be here. Beau, by necessity, has to be in her room. It's just feeding her feelings of like replacement, her feelings of not being, wanted. She's obviously built a connection with the veteran guy. It's implied that even though he's in the mental state that he is like a protector of her. I think that at a certain point, she doesn't want to play the game anymore. And she's like trying to basically get him to intimidate Beau or like kick him out, essentially, right?
Right.
But he's still a little bit there enough to where he recognizes who makes the actual calls in the family, who he takes orders from. So that's why he maybe intimidates Beau, but he doesn't necessarily do anything to him. I think Tony is doing all this to try to get Beau, get to him, get him out of her life, and none of it's working. She snaps. So it's like, okay, fine. Last ditch effort. Maybe I pull Beau to my side. I hate it all. Like they only care about him. They don't care about me. I'm the child that's still alive. We're going to do this. Or here's my other theory. Actually, this I think actually might be the more accurate theory, is that she was instructed that she has to go and frame Beau for this. And she's obviously distraught, but she still has to do it. She's just like, fuck it, let's go out together. At least I won't go out alone, but won't do it. Fine, fuck it. I just have to do this. Maybe the mom isn't filled in on that part and then has a genuine reaction. Oh, Beau did this. Beau needs to fucking get fucked.
What's interesting to me, though, about Toni is that she records Beau hugging the mom, and she later threatens him like, oh, I have videos of you, blah blah blah. I'm like, what does that really accomplish? You know what I mean? Like her having a video of Beau hugging her mom, because it's implied that like they're gonna frame him for something sexual or like whatever, right? Like she's gonna like maybe claim she was assaulted by him or something to that effect. Her and the friend.
She does threaten him.
She threatens him with it, right? But it's like,
and then they film him smoking the weed and everything.
But
I don't know if that's just to generally, display anxiety in terms of like knowing that you're doing something that you don't want to do and someone's filming it. I don't know.
But it's so weird to me, though, specifically her filming him hugging the mom, because that doesn't really incriminate him in any way. What I just thought of, maybe she knows that her dad works for his mom and she's filming it, kind of showing that like, hey, look, he's forming a connection with my mom and sending it to Mona, right?
That's a good one. Yeah,
that's kind of what I just kind of landed on. But that doesn't explain then why she commits suicide or like why she sets up to frame Beau.
I think that was orders.
You know what? Unless it's to get the mom to turn. So okay, let's talk about the mom.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's an order to get the mom to like
to turn against Beau.
Because this whole thing, right?
So here's the thing, though. Here's an interesting thought. I was curious as to why the mom warned him. Like, stop incriminating yourself. Turn to channel 78. Like, why is she doing all this? And I don't know if this is true. I got a kick out of it, though. There was a comment on Reddit when they were discussing this saying, the mom is on the defense team.
That's funny.
And I'm like, you know what? That kind of makes sense. I don't know if I believe it, but like, it kind of makes sense.
That's funny. I don't believe it, but that's funny. Here's my theory. I think the mom doesn't work for Mona, or if she does, she's an unwilling participant. I think the mom is a genuinely caring person to begin with. Dad's the one that's really like, I work for Mona, I'm gonna do this, right?
Yeah.
I think what happens is that the mom is doing her best to warn Beau because she knows that this whole thing is essentially a test for him. To prove his love and loyalty to his mom. Yeah. Right? This whole thing is a test. I think Toni was instructed to do all that to try to incriminate Beau and then kill herself, ultimately kill herself. As one, keep the test going. Two, to also punish the mom for helping him. That's how I take it.
Yeah, I kind of solved that as I was getting ready to ask you that question. I was like, oh, actually, you know what? I think this is why.
Let's talk about the fucking biggest wrench in this whole movie.
Okay.
Right? The biggest out of fucking nowhere absurdity. This is probably the second hardest laugh I had throughout this entire movie. Would you like to take a guess as what I'm talking about?
I mean, is it not the penis monster?
It's fucking 100% the penis monster.
Okay.
Where we get the big reveal that Beau's dad is a fucking dick monster.
Which is, okay, already weird. But then we get the fucking veteran who we saw die, come back and kill the dick monster?
No, okay. So here's my interpretation of everything, right? So the veteran guy, he doesn't die. He gets hit over the head and like he injures his shoulder, right? He fucking annihilates his shoulder with the gun, but it's not enough to kill him.
Damn, okay.
We don't know that though. We just assume he's dead.
True.
But like it clearly is just shooting his shoulder, so
which is weird though, because he's fucking going ham on him with like knives.
So before this happens, the mom is like, no, you idiot, that's your brother. It really happened. That wasn't a dream. It really happened. That's your brother.
Well, she was like, it wasn't a dream, it's a memory.
It's a memory.
And that's when he goes up there and he sees the dude.
He sees his twin brother. She never says explicitly that it's his brother. She just says that it's a memory.
Yeah.
So to us, that tells us that we're not projecting here. He's really seeing somebody that looks just like him get put up the attic.
So then do you subscribe to the sibling thing?
I've always subscribed to him having the brother. So he has a twin brother who was locked up there because he was the brave part of the two of them that knew the dad was a lie. Brother's been up there his whole life. Now we've like, oh, that's his brother. This is the fucking dad. And it's fucking hilarious because all you hear is the penis monster saying, my son. Which I fucking lost it, dude. I was fucking dead, dude.
No, okay. That's interesting because I know a lot of people have the belief that is not an actual twin. That is like the brave part of himself that he lost or whatever when she like took that away from him, essentially emasculated him.
Take what the movie gives you, right? Don't try to just keep making stuff out of like nothing. The movie's giving you something, like take it. And I'm not saying you have to believe it. I'm just saying like she says herself, like that wasn't a dream, it's a memory. It's implied that if it's a memory, we can assume that everything that's happening in it happened. So therefore, it has to be another person because that's what he's seeing. And then we see the penis monster, which also coincides with the person that we thought was the dad saying, I served your dad. I used to feed him his meals, which makes sense that he would have to feed a penis monster hiding away in the attic their meals. Yeah.
So there was also a comment when they drag away Elaine's dead body, Mona basically tells him to feed it to the penis monster. I misunderstood you earlier when I was talking about the whole sibling thing because I thought you were on board with like that he didn't have siblings.
No, he has a brother.
Yeah, so we know he's there because that's what he's been seeing. You're still not on board with the Elaine thing though, even though we do see her for a second. I know why you don't, but I just want to clarify.
So no. So like for me, the brother's real because that's the common reoccurrence throughout. Every time we see this scene, right, is the brother's always there. We see Elaine in one scene, and to me, again, that is him projecting his mom and Elaine as the same person because, again, it's tied to Freudism.
I'm curious,
like that's what I tie all.
I'm curious though, because when we are still under the assumption that Mona died, and we see like the tombstones, right, or the burial slots in the family. Yeah, we see the dad, we see her. Yeah. And then all we see is Beau.
But no death.
It's very strange that because that kid, his twin brother, was old enough to, I think, be around and be like, she has 2 kids.
Yeah,
it's very strange that he just goes away.
Yeah, so like I alluded to this earlier when we were talking about Richard Kind. I think it's Richard Kind, the one who's giving the eulogy, where he makes the comment about the last surviving son.
Yeah.
So like I think
because then, sorry, I just thought of this too. When he calls Richard Kind from Nathan Lane's house, he goes, "Oh, she didn't want to be buried without the golden boy," affirming that there was another sibling.
I think the line of like the last surviving son is supposed to be a breadcrumb alluding to, you know, when we eventually find the brother. You're right. Like he does seem old enough to where the public should know about him, right? That she has 2 sons.
Yeah.
I don't know, right? Like I really don't know. That's just
another reason to be pissed at this movie.
You know, I don't know if it's a mess up. I don't know if it's intentional. I honestly couldn't tell you. That's just kind of where I'm at with this movie. And like, I'm not saying that I'm entirely married to what I think.
Yeah.
That being the case, I think I'm like about 80% there. I'm like 80% convinced that that's what it is. But like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there aren't parts of it that don't necessarily add up, but I think the parts of it that don't add up are smaller in scale compared to some of the other theories that are floating around out there, where I think I can think of things off the top of my head that I think in my mind refute those theories. You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, that penis monster, man. As soon as I saw that, I pretty much gave up on the movie. I was like, okay.
So you didn't find it amusing at all? Because I fucking was dying at that
I'm telling
part.
you, it did not get a laugh out of me because I was so done with this movie at this point. I was like, please fucking end. I'm so done. Okay. Like, I don't want any more curveballs. Like, please just fucking end. This movie does not need to be 3 hours, especially since the only good part was like the first hour.
I agree.
Yeah, I was just so like mentally exhausted by that point where I just was like, okay. I was like, fuck. Yeah. All right.
So I do think an interesting part does happen after that movie where after he sees his dad, he's like freaking out, understandably so, right? And then like the mom initially is like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, I wanted to protect you. She's very sympathetic towards him, but then she switches up on him real quick.
Yeah.
Where then like, you foolish boy, oh, now you're sorry. So you'll notice throughout this entire movie that they have dynamics throughout the entire movie where both of them are like initially hostile to the other and then 180 apologetic. For example, Beau is standing firm, like, I am justified in that I missed my flight. And then the minute his mom starts to show disappointment with him, he switches up and tries to appease her. Same thing with the mom, where the mom is like really enthusiastic to see him, have him come over. The minute it's implied that he can't make it, she then just assumes the exact worst, where she just doesn't outright believe him at all.
I just realized they both kind of have the same like paranoia, the same kind of mental illness.
Exactly.
It's just in different ways.
Exactly. I think that's just a really good display of like that kind of parental dynamic where
the mental illness was passed down. That's the one thing that was really actually passed down was the mental illness rather than...
You don't think the giant ball sack was also passed down from the mom? You think?
That comes from the dad, baby.
Yeah.
You get that from your daddy.
Oh, dude. The first time you see it...
Dude, it was...
And you just...
Oh, it has like little... that thing is fucked up looking, man. That thing is fucked up looking. Okay, sorry, we got really distracted. We went on a tangent, but you were asking about things we actually liked. There was a scene that I really liked. It's a flashback scene, and I think Beau's in his bed, and his mom's talking to him. It's like nighttime, and they have like a night light, and it kind of shows her face like in the light, right, every now and then. At one point, it switches to her old face, and dude, that actually legitimately was like kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was like, oh fuck.
You know, I missed that actually.
Rewatch that scene. It happens like once, and then I was waiting for it to happen again, or like a jump scare. I was like, holy fuck, because she does look fucking deranged and creepy. So if you could go back, watch that scene. It's sick.
I like the penis monster scene. I thought that shit was hilarious as fuck. I fucking laughed my ass off at it.
Yeah. I was so done at that point.
I was also ready for it to be done at this point, but I really did enjoy the court scene where they're like going back and forth. And like the fucking, it's just so good where Richard Kind is like loud, very clear, making his points. And then the defense lawyer is like
shit.
Far away.
Okay. There is something I want to ask you about this scene. Good. Mona does not say anything during this scene. But there's a part where she's like grasping onto the rail really hard. Eventually it falls.
Yes.
I kind of got the feeling that she was kind of regretting everything at that point.
Yes, but also anger, right? Like, again, this ties into the whole parent-child dynamic where you have this unconditional love for your child. But there is nobody in this world that will piss you off more than that same child.
Yeah.
Being a parent is nothing but give, 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 and never receiving. Being a child is take, 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 and then never wanting to give, you know, because you're so used to it being the other way. There's instances where the kid doesn't make that change to adulthood where they eventually realize that they need to start taking care of their parents. Or if they do, it's a very awkward transition, you know? It's never a perfect, clean transition. Beau never makes that transition because he was so coddled by his mother, so extremely like sheltered by her, that he's literally incapable of even protecting himself, of even taking care of himself. His mom controls every aspect of his life to the point where he's both resentful of her, but also relies on her. In that moment where she breaks the thing, like, I fully believe that it is a moment of anger for her where she's seeing in front of her all these things that Beau has done to hurt her. And like she cannot take it anymore, and she finally snaps. But then the moment that Beau gets his comeuppance, instant regret, instant sadness, and missing her son. And it just ties into that whole thing where you get parents mad enough, they'll snap, they fucking spank you, hit you, whatever, and then they regret it. They feel bad. I have friends, I have coworkers that are parents that have had that moment with their children where their children push their buttons so much that they
it's child abusers.
Not like hit them or anything,
Child abuse.
but like they finally had that moment where they snap and like they scream or they yell at them, or they use like the very aggressive like parent voice.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's really what it is. Like I think a lot of people kind of tend to overthink these things. I think a lot of people are again just trying to make a lot out of nothing, or just taking what their imagination gives them and just running with it.
So after Beau gets his sentence to death, we assume he obviously drowns and dies, and then we get the audience leaving during the credits.
Yeah,
people were glazing this scene on Reddit. And how they're like, oh my God, they're walking out just like us. It's amazing. It's great filmmaking. I didn't think it was that great. I was like, okay, cool. I didn't think it was anything special. Like, I don't know why people are so hyped on that.
Again, it's just one of those things where like it's just a public spectacle. It's a public display. You know, like when a mom is getting mad at their kid in public, right? And everybody just kind of watches, you know, we partake, we don't do anything, nobody intervenes. Like, you know, it's just one of those things where we're all just bystanders, you know?
Yeah,
and
the
it's
bystander
like,
syndrome to like an injustice that's happening.
Yeah, like I don't think there's anything more to it than that. I don't think it's like, oh, this is great. This is fucking awesome. Like, it's fine, whatever. Like I was more disappointed with like not getting any like full circle moment with the ending, you know? Like exactly. I wasn't like watching this like, oh, this is full circle in the frame of the audience watching it all unfold, just like we watched it all unfold. I'm like, okay, yeah, that happened at Space Jam too. I don't know, like it's just whatever. I will say this: did you catch the allusion to this scene at the beginning of the movie?
Yeah, when he's walking through the town. I think that scene kind of foreshadows a lot of things. So like again, you're walking past each stall, and then one of them is like a machine gun, kind of alluding to the mass shooting that happens later on in the fucking movie. I'm sure there's like more. It kind of alludes to, it might allude to the whole fucking story actually. I would go back and watch it, but I'm kind of mentally done. I'm going to need to recuperate.
You need to give some time. You need to definitely give some time. Let me just kind of circle back to what I said at the beginning of this whole thing, where it's like you watching this movie is either the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. It could be the best thing ever because it can only go up from here, in my opinion.
Okay, that's fair.
Or it's either the worst thing ever is because I'm afraid that this movie might have tainted your feelings or expectations of what Ari's capable of.
Because I did have high expectations. I mean, I'll get into it when we do our ratings. Olivia Rodrigo actually walked out of this movie.
Yeah, I could.
Don't ask why I know that, but
I could see that.
She walked out. She described it as a bad acid trip. She was like, nope out of there.
I could see that. Yeah. You know, anyways. She strikes me as somebody that doesn't necessarily want to think about the things she consumes.
Damn.
Sorry, I didn't mean to fire shots at her. You know,
catching strays.
You know, listen, I have a fun little prop for us.
Let's do it. Let's hear it.
I have a would you rather for you. Would you rather be stuck in a 1-bedroom apartment for 24 hours
with a giant penis monster
with a brown recluse who in this case is after you, right? I know you made the point about brown recluses but this brown recluse is after you and you cannot kill it, right? You just have to survive for 24 hours in this 1-bedroom apartment with this brown recluse constantly pursuing you. You know, keep in mind that the real danger comes for when you sleep. Or would you rather spend a Thanksgiving dinner with your penis monster father?
Wow.
What would you rather do?
Initially, I was just going to say the brown recluse. Yes, even though it is after me. if it does eventually get me, their venom actually isn't that deadly. Like the danger is very overstated in this movie, which rightfully so. So that is the easy answer, right? Is to do that. Dinner with the evil, or not evil, but a giant.
I don't think he was evil.
He's not evil.
He was pretty stoked to see his son.
He's not evil. So
my son.
Okay. So a dinner with a giant penis monster. Right?
Your dad, by the way.
Your dad.
Not just
you know what? Yeah. It's very derogatory to call it a monster. All right. It's just a giant penis being. Okay.
Fair. Sure.
Right?
Sure.
What does that entail, right? Well, I know for a fact he eats naked girls. So there's
one of the things he might eat.
At the very least, there's going to be naked women. Dinner doesn't need to be that long. Right? It could be an hour or two tops, and then I could dip. I think I might go with dinner with the penis being. There's so many questions, right? There's so many questions to ask during dinner. Like how? Why? The fuck? Like just everything. So I might have to go Thanksgiving dinner. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Thanksgiving dinner.
Thanksgiving dinner, yeah.
It's going to be all good till we get to politics. Let me tell you that.
Okay. All right. Or religion. What religion do you think the penis being partakes in?
Oh, he's a Buddhist for sure.
I was going to say scream Scientology.
He actually practices Kabbalah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I have one more. Would you rather have every single homeless drug addict person party in your house for
24 hours?
Night, 24 hours or be stuck against your own will with a family that you know has ulterior motives for you? And this is like indefinite, right? Like, because obviously he doesn't leave until the Tony thing happens.
So it's like 24 hours versus being with the family indefinitely?
Indefinitely. Because it's granted, it's a more normal living scenario, right? Yeah. But it's a living scenario in where you can't trust these people. Mm-hmm. There's weird shit happening all the time. And you have a mentally unstable person who could probably kill you at any moment.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Rager, man.
Okay.
Fuck it, let's party. Okay. I only got to really worry about birthday stabby guy, right? He's the only real person I got to worry about.
Yeah. Crazy.
Should we rate this thing?
Okay, so let me go first then.
Okay.
If this had been the first Ari Aster movie that I've seen, I feel like I maybe would have been a little bit more favorable to it. But because I've seen Hereditary and Midsommar, and I fucking love those movies to death, it just doesn't feel right to give this movie anything more than a 2.5. I think the first half of this movie is really strong. Although I'm not the biggest fan of where the movie goes after that, I do enjoy the beginning of this movie a lot. And there's parts of this movie throughout that I do enjoy as well, enough to where I would just call this an average movie for me. If the beginning of the movie wasn't as strong as it is, this probably would have been like a 1.5 to 2 for me.
Wow, okay. I was honestly kind of expecting higher from you for some reason.
Yeah.
So this movie put me in a really tough spot, because I really, really enjoyed the first part. I think all the performances are really solid. I think it was shot so beautifully. There was a lot of cool imagery. It just did a lot of things really well. However, it was a mentally exhausting movie, and not in a good way. Like, I did not enjoy the ride it put me on, which is why it pissed me off. Because I really wanted to like this movie. I had expectations for this movie, and it just disappointed me. And the end is just so, honestly, it's kind of abysmal for me. Like, it was like, damn, like, this sucks. Well, not this sucks, like this movie sucks, but like that sucks that's how I feel about it. I wanted to give it a 3, but I can't in good faith do that, because I gave Swiss Army Man a 3. And I enjoyed that movie immensely more than I enjoyed this movie. That movie I rewatched 3 times. This movie, I don't know if I ever want to watch it again. Like, I think I'm just kind of done. But the first half and the performances make it so hard for me to like score it. I want to say 2.5 as well, just because I can't score it higher than I scored Swiss Army Man. I didn't enjoy it, but the parts that I did like, I really liked. This doesn't deter me from watching any more of his films. This isn't like a huge turnoff because I could see what he does really well. Like I appreciated what he did really well. It's just this movie just didn't do it for me. So it doesn't deter me from like, oh no, his movies are garbage. It's like, okay, like let me give this other one a chance. Maybe this one will be better. That being said, Beau is Afraid gets a 2.5 from the Nosebleed A24 Club. Thank you for listening. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, give us a follow, give us a rating. If you're watching this on YouTube, consider subscribing, join the conversation, leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe for more video podcasts. You can find us on our website where we host our rankings of all the movies we review at nosebleedav.club. And you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at nosebleedav.club. We are trying to find our giant penis dad. So you can help us do that by doing all of those things and supporting the podcast. Thank you for listening.
My viewers.